1941. A quiet Sunday morning suddenly shattered by roaring engines and deadly explosions. More than 2,400 Americans would lie dead at Pearl Harbor, forever changing the course of history. But what motivated Japan to launch such a bold strike? And how did this single attack set off a chain of events, drawing two great powers into a brutal 4-year conflict across hundreds of islands and vast oceans? Today, we tell the story of the Pacific War, not just battles and strategies, but the human lives entwined in a clash between Japan and America. In this documentary, you will hear about the leaders, the soldiers, the civilians. You will learn how dreams of honor and power, desperation and survival, ambition and fear all collided under tropical suns, stormy seas, and atomic destruction. And by the end, you will ask, at what cost did victory come? It all began long before the bombs fell. In the early 20th century, Japan was changing rapidly. Once isolated, the country embraced modernization and militarization. By the 1930s, its imperial ambitions grew, not only in Asia, but across the Pacific. Meanwhile, in the United States, industrial might and a growing global presence shaped a very different path. On December 7, 1941, under orders conceived in Tokyo, Japan launched a surprise attack on the U.S. Pacific Fleet stationed at Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. In just a few hours, Japanese aircraft sank or damaged 8 American battleships, destroyed nearly 200 aircraft, and killed around 2,403 people, including sailors, soldiers, and civilians. The shock reverberated across America. The next day, the United States declared war on Japan, entering directly into the Pacific War. Behind that decision was Emperor Hirohito, the symbolic head of Japan. Raised in traditional imperial surroundings, Hirohito's role was complex, both as figurehead and moral center of his nation. As war clouds gathered, Japan's military leaders, driven by a mixture of nationalism and strategic ambition, plotted a bold path to secure resources and strengthen their position in Asia. On the American side, President Franklin D. Roosevelt, already leading a nation wary of war but committed to supporting the Allies, now faced a direct threat. He famously called the attack a day which will live in infamy. The United States mobilized with industrial force, drawing on its vast resources, shipyards, aircraft factories, and the bravery of its young men. The war shifted quickly to intense island fighting. The U.S. adopted a strategy known as island hopping, capturing key islands one by one to move ever closer to the Japanese home islands. Some of the most brutal battles followed. One such battle was Saipan in June 1944. Approximately 30,000 Japanese soldiers defended the island to the death.
Then there was Iwo Jima, one of the most iconic and costly battles of the Pacific War. From February 19 to March 26, 1945, American Marines stormed the island under extremely difficult conditions. After 36 days, over 26,000 Americans were casualties, including roughly 6,800 killed. And while there were fierce Japanese losses, the Japanese strategy of defending in deep tunnels and bunkers inflicted a tremendous cost. But perhaps the bloodiest confrontation came at Okinawa, starting on April 1, 1945, and lasting nearly 3 months. The cornerstones of peace on Okinawa now bear witness to the staggering losses. More than 242,000 lives lost in total. This includes roughly 149,600 Okinawan civilians, 77,800 Japanese soldiers, and 14,000 Americans, plus smaller numbers from other nationalities. The suffering was profound. Civilian suicides, mass evacuations, starvation, and relentless bombardment became part of daily life on the island. It was during this phase of the war that Japan increasingly turned to a tactic that shocked the world: kamikaze attacks. Under Operation Kikusui, from April to June 1945, hundreds of Japanese pilots volunteered or were ordered to crash their aircraft into Allied ships, sacrificing themselves in suicide missions. These attacks sank ships, killed thousands of Allied sailors, and caused profound psychological impact on both sides. Behind all this, individuals carried personal stories. Consider Isoroku Yamamoto, the Japanese admiral who planned the Pearl Harbor attack. He was a respected tactician, educated in the United States in his youth, who once warned that Japan could not win a long war with America. Yet his design shaped early Japanese victories. His death would come later, in 1943, when U.S. intelligence intercepted his travel plans and shot down his plane, a turning point in morale and strategy. On the American side, there was General Douglas MacArthur, who became commander of Allied occupation forces in Japan after the war. MacArthur had been forced to flee the Philippines earlier in the war, famously promising, "I shall return." His return in 1944 and his leadership in the closing chapters of the war made him a towering figure in both combat and reconstruction. By mid-1945, the tide turned. The United States, wielding overwhelming industrial power, had captured island after island, built airfields, and pushed ever closer to Japan. Meanwhile, Japan realized it was cornered. Resources were dwindling. Cities were under fire. In August 1945, two devastating events occurred. The United States dropped atomic bombs on Hiroshima on August 6th and on Nagasaki on August 9th. The bombs instantly killed tens of thousands. Estimates suggest civilian deaths, including those who perished later due to radiation, numbered in the hundreds of thousands. The strain of war, fear of further atomic devastation, and the bleak military situation brought Japan to a fateful moment. On August 14, 1945, Emperor Hirohito addressed his nation, announcing Japan's unconditional surrender, citing the new and most cruel bomb. On September 2, 1945, aboard the USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Japanese representatives signed the instrument of surrender. The human cost of the Pacific War was enormous and heartbreaking. According to historical records, the U.S. lost about 111,606 servicemen killed or missing, and another 253,142 wounded. Japan's losses were even staggering. Conservative estimates put military deaths at about 2.1 million, with civilian deaths ranging from 500,000 to 1 million. Yet beyond numbers, there were real people. In Okinawa, families huddled in caves, hiding from bombs and bullets. On remote islands, young soldiers dug tunnels, wrote letters home, or offered themselves in kamikaze missions, driven by duty and fear. American Marines, fresh from small towns in the United States, marched across volcanic ash, battled entrenched defenders, and watched comrades fall. After the war, Japan came under Allied occupation, overseen by General MacArthur. Under his guidance, Japan rebuilt its institutions, economy, and identity. Emperor Hirohito stayed on the throne, but his role was redefined. Once a divine figure above his people, he became a constitutional monarch in a new peaceful Japan. In the United States, veterans returned home to a changed world. Some wrestled with trauma, others with pride. Memorials sprang up across both nations, bearing names that would never be forgotten. One of the most powerful reminders of the war's toll stands in Okinawa, the cornerstone of peace, with over 240,000 names etched into its walls. It is a quiet place now, but each name is a story. A soldier, a child, a mother, a worker, a civilian lost in crossfire. The monument speaks not only of death but of hope. Hope that history will remember and that peace may endure. The Pacific War was more than a clash of empires. It was a collision of human lives, ambitions, sacrifices, fears and losses. America and Japan emerged forever changed. Millions had died. Yet from the ashes arose a fragile peace, built on reconstruction, reconciliation, and remembrance. Today, the islands where bombs once fell are places of memory and healing. The names on monuments, the stories of veterans, the lessons taught to new generations, they remind us that war is never just a strategy. It is always deeply human.